Saygıdeğer katılımcılar,
Distinguished participants, I'd like to welcome you all to this presentation. My name is Özlem Cinemre from the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey. I'm responsible for Treasury, financial institutions, and development financing institutions and wholesale banking. I'm Deputy Director General. I'd like to extend my greetings to each and every one of you on my behalf and on behalf of my bank. I'd like to thank you very much for your time, for devoting your time for this meeting and for your attendance. Distinguished participants, we are going to provide you all kinds of details about the grant program. We will try to answer your questions. The Formal Employment Creation Project, the grant program, is financed by the European Union under the Facility for Refugees in Turkey and implemented by the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey, TKYB, under the management of the World Bank. And we have been working on this project, which is Formal Employment Creation Project, for the last 2 years. It has a loan component and it also has a grant component for which we are going to provide you the details. That's why we are so excited with this project. During this project with the European Union and also the World Bank, we were very excited to work in close contact, especially in the field of grants. We want to improve our capacity, and we were so excited by learning throughout this process. But most importantly, this project is also suitable for the mission of the development banking, and also it hopefully will provide some solutions to the barriers in front of the sustainable development in Turkey. We have employment, women employment, refugees employment, and also in addition to large enterprises, small and medium scale enterprises, access to funding and finance are the most important supports provided through this project. And with these supports, we hope that the outputs of this project will be very useful and fruitful for Turkey. Until 28th of February, the call is open for your applications. And the last meeting will be held on the 23rd of February. In total, we are planning to organize 6 information meetings, 1 physical meeting and 5 online meetings. We had the first one last week, and this is the second presentation meeting. You may ask any questions you want, because you may want to get details, and we will provide all information. But this is not the only channel for you to reach out to us. For this project, we have designed a website, www.coast.org, and you can find the application guideline, in dates of the information meetings, questions, answers, all of the relevant information. Please actively use that website. I hope that this meeting today will be very fruitful and useful for all the participants and for all. And hopefully this grant program will be very fruitful for the beneficiaries and for our country. Now I'd like to give the floor to our colleagues from the project implementation team. Ayşegül Hanım, over to you. Thank you. Thank you, Özlem Hanım. My name is Ayşegül Çerçi. I'm responsible for development cooperation and wholesale banking. I'm a director, and I'm in the project implementation team of this grant program. This is the second information meeting, which is held online, and we will try to answer your questions that you already submit. The program flow will be as follows. Project expert Caner Kar and Dilek Soyko ve Çatalkaya will make this presentation on the information of the project grant program. Then we will collect your questions, and based on your questions, and also we will answer the frequently asked questions in addition to the questions we collect from you. You can submit your questions in the Q&A part of your screens, and we will try to answer your questions verbally by collecting your questions in writing. There is also simultaneous interpretation both in English and Arabic, and if you wish, you can use these channels to follow the meeting in English or Arabic. Once again, just like Özlem Hanım, I'd like to remind you of the website coast.org of the project, and we will present the website to you briefly after this presentation, and coast@kalkınma.com.tr for your questions. You can use this account. We answer all your questions if you submit your questions to that email account with great details. Without further ado, I'd like to start the presentation. Caner Bey will start the presentation. Caner Bey, over to you. Thank you. Ayşegül Hanım, thank you very much, distinguished participants. I'd like to welcome you all to this information meeting at the Formal Employment Creation Project Grant Program. My name is Can Erkar from the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey. I'm also in the project implementation team. I hope that this meeting will be fruitful for all of you. Without further ado, I will start our presentation. First, I will start with an important note. There are 3 points I'd like to make. This presentation today includes the Turkish translations of the grant program application guideline and its annexes at the link addresses case.org and also the following link, as you can see. It has been prepared for information purposes for potential applicants. In case of any conflict between this presentation and the grant program application guideline and its annexes, the English versions of the guideline and annexes will be binding. And today's presentation has been drafted with financial support of the European Union. The content of this presentation is solely under the responsibility of our bank, and it does not reflect the views of the European Union. And there are 4 parts in this presentation. We will start with the description of the project, to be followed by the project components. And in the 3rd and 4th parts of this presentation, we will provide to you the general framework of the grant components and conditions of the grant program with details. First, I will start with the description of the project. There is an objective of the project. The objective of the project is to enhance the conditions for formal job creation by firms operating in growing economic sectors with high employment potential and located in selected 24 provinces with high incidence of Syrians under temporary protection for the benefit of Turkish citizens and refugees. And it will provide the financial resources and skills that are needed by the enterprises to employ people. The project combines resources from the World Bank and also EU facility for refugees in Turkey, FRIT, to funds for a total budget of 396 million euros. There are 3 components of the project. The first component is World Bank loan. There are 2 parts of this World Bank loan. The first one is sub-loans under Part 1A of the project. This is going to be in the form of direct loans to large enterprises, and the amount is 125 million euros. And the second one is Apex loans through a wholesale banking facility. And the amount is approximately 180 million euros. And the second component, grant component, both the large enterprises and also SMEs are the beneficiaries, and the amount is 70 million euros. And the final component, third component, last component, is technical and institutional support in the form of loans and also grants. We have 650,000 euros for the loan, and for the loans it is 316 million euros. And just like in all grant programs, in this formal job creation, employment creation project, we have important implementation principles. The first one is environmental and social management framework. The environmental and social standards of the World Bank and also our bank's environmental and social management framework will apply, and the applicants should submit their proposals in line with the environmental and social standards of the World Bank and TKYB's environmental and social management framework, and the project's environmental and social commitment plan, stakeholder engagement plan, labor management procedures, and other relevant World Bank and TKYB policies and regulations. You can find all these plans and policies on our website for the details, for further information. Another important implementation principle is technical and institutional capacity building support. As we highlighted in the previous slide, it is under the component 3. Under the technical and institutional support component, support will be provided to improve the institutional capacities of beneficiary companies and implementing financial institutions and the skills of newly employed persons and TKYB. So newly employed persons' skills will also be improved. And the final principle is focus on women inclusive firms. So women inclusive companies are very important under this project. So what are these women inclusive companies? Women inclusive companies need to fulfill 3 criteria, any of these 3 criteria. First of all, it should have at least 1 female shareholder with properly documented representation and management powers, or A women inclusive company must have at least one female senior manager or have a female representation of at least 25% in the middle management. And also, if a company employs women at a higher rate than the average observed in the relevant sector, that company is also considered as a women inclusive company. Loan component is the first component, and there are two parts, as I said before. Under this loan, we have direct lending by TKYB to large enterprises. So what we mean by that, large enterprise? A large enterprise employs equal to or more than 250 employees. TKYB is providing investment and working capital loans directly to eligible large enterprises, and these large enterprises should be financially viable and already have a consolidated record of job creation and want to expand their business and generate markets. And the maximum sub-loan amount for a sub-project is 5 million euros and 15 million euros for an eligible firm. More information can be requested from TKYB Corporate Banking and Project Finance Department for further information. The second part of loan component is Apex lending by TKYB. And of course, TKYB does not have any branch network. For that reason, SMEs operating in project provinces will be supported through participating financial institutions. TKYB is providing subsidiary financing loan to eligible participating financial institutions to on-land SMEs operating in project provinces, employs less than 250 employees for their investment and working capital needs. So sub-loans are provided for eligible SMEs to create formal employment. Maximum sub-loan amount for a sub-project is 3 million euros and 6 million euros for an eligible company. There are 6 participating financial institutions, leasing institutions, which are Yapı Kredi Leasing, Vakıf Leasing, Garanti Leasing, QNB Finance Leasing, AK Leasing, and İş Leasing. For further information about this Apex lending, you can request the further information from the relevant PFIs, participating financial institutions. There are some features of our grant program. First of all, which companies are eligible? Both companies that create employment, formal employment for Turkish nationals and Syrians under temporary protection and other refugees. And also, these companies will be requested to submit a work plan for 18 months. And also, the employment records to be presented by the firms will be verified and cross-checked with the SSI reports, Social Security reports. There is no sectoral limitation in this project, but there are some activities that are not funded by World Bank and TKYB. This is exclusion list. You can find that list in our website. And as I said before, women inclusive companies and enterprises will be encouraged to participate. And there are 770 companies that are beneficiaries of sub-grants, and 255 of them are expected to be women inclusive companies. And also 2,700 of 9,000 formal jobs to be created to be women. And also technical and institutional support components of the project will be the one under which capacity building activities will be carried out by the sub-projects. And this is the overall objective of the grant program. The overall objective of the program is to enhance the conditions for formal job creation by firms operating in growing economic sectors with high employment potential and located in selected 24 provinces with high incidence of Syrians under temporary protection for the benefits of Turkish citizens and refugees. Beneficiary firms will receive the grants conditional on formal employment creation of Turkish citizens and refugees, including ESSN beneficiaries. There are 2 priorities of this program. The priority 1 is creating and increasing formal employment for refugees and Turkish citizens, and priority 2 is to create and increase formal employment for women. There is also a rationale. There are 5 rationale of the program. This is about the background rationale of the program. The first one is, in these selected provinces, there is a limited employment creation and formal employment opportunities. And also, there are limited financing opportunities for firms in these provinces where refugees are concentrated. They have difficulty in accessing funding, and social and labor market problems exist, and this affects both refugees and Turkish citizens in labor markets. And there's a need to facilitate the transition of emergency social safety net beneficiaries to formal employment. And finally, there is a low awareness of employability of Syrians. These are the selected project provinces. You can see there are 24 selected provinces. Most of these provinces are located in eastern and southeastern part of Turkey. However, in the central Anatolia, in the Aegean and Marmara region, we have selected provinces as well. For further information, you can use our guideline and website. The budget and also grants support amounts are indicated here. Maybe we should talk about the sub grants and grants. We should describe this first because it may lead to confusion. The sub grant means as follows: the beneficiaries under this program will have access to amount of certain support through this grant, and the total of these sub grants compose grants. This is the breakdown. The projects to be submitted by the companies are referred to as a sub-project. The total budget of the program is 70 million euros. Small and medium and large scaled enterprises can benefit from this grant program. And the number of employees is taken as the basis for the scale of the enterprises. The turnover of the enterprises is not important. Small enterprises employing 1 to 49 employees, and medium enterprises employ 50 to 249 employees, and large enterprises are the ones that employ 250 employees or over, or more than 250 employees. If you look at the breakdown of the grant, 14 million for the small enterprises, 22.4 for the medium enterprises, and 33.6 million euros for the large enterprises. These are the amounts for these scales of enterprises. Depending on the scale of enterprises, the minimum and maximum sub-grant amounts also vary. For the small enterprises, it is 15 to 45,000, and for the medium enterprises, 25 to 125,000, and for the large enterprises, 40 to 300,000 euros of grant amount will be provided. Another important point: the requested sub-grant amount must be between 50% to 70% of the total eligible cost of the sub-project. For that reason, the beneficiary companies are expected to provide co-funding as well. You can see the sample budgeting according to sub-grant amounts for small-scale companies and minimum and maximum support amounts. For example, the minimum sub-grant amount is 15,000 if the beneficiary company requests grants for 15,000 euros, and the contribution of the applicant and the sub-project budget are indicated. For 15,000 euro of the EU contribution, the applicant should contribute around 6,500 euros. And of course, when 45,000 euros is requested, that contribution amount or co-financing amount also vary similarly. And you can see human resources cost, minimum 70% and maximum 90% of total eligible costs should be human resources cost. And the amount will vary depending on minimum 70% and also maximum 90% total eligible cost will vary accordingly, and total project budget will vary. And similarly, for the medium-sized company, minimum 25,000, maximum 125,000 euros can be applied for the grant. And you can see the applicant contribution financing amount and total sub-project budget, and also human resources cost. Depending on the amount of grant, this human resources cost also vary, and depending on the 25% of contribution or co-financing, it vary. For large scaled enterprises, 40,000 to 300,000 euros of grants can be applied for. Just like in small and medium scaled companies, you can see the numbers vary. We have eligibility criteria, which are as follows. There are 3 different eligibility criteria categories. At this point, we are checking the eligibility of applicants who can apply for this program, what kind of companies and firms can apply, and which companies cannot apply for this program. And we also evaluate eligibility of sub-projects, which sectors, what should be the risk category, what should be the duration and location of the sub-projects, a number of proposals. We evaluate the eligibility of these aspects. And finally, we evaluate the eligibility of the costs in the sub-projects, whether they are eligible costs or ineligible costs. Who can apply? Eligibility of the applicant. We can start with this one first. Who can apply for this program? First of all, an applicant firm must be a legal person, which means joint stock, limited liability, collective, ordinary limited partnership, and limited partnership companies may apply for this program. And also small firms, medium firms, and also large firms may also apply as an applicant. They are considered as eligible applicants. They must be fully privately owned enterprises. For that reason, publicly owned businesses are not eligible. Cooperatives and non-profit organizations are not eligible for this call. And they must be officially registered in Turkey, and they should have facilities, and they should be operating the sub-project activity in one of the selected project provinces. For example, the headquarters of the company may be located in Istanbul, but if the activity is in Samsun, if it's going to create employment in Samsun, as Samsun is not one of these 24 selected project provinces, they cannot be applicant. And they must have been established at least 2 years prior to the date of call for proposals, which is 17th of December 2019. If the companies are established after this date, they are not eligible applicants. And they should have no previous non-paid and overdue liabilities, overdue social charges and tax payments without exceeding the legal limits of prevailing legislation or defaulted loans. They must be directly responsible for the preparation and management of the sub-project. They should not act as an intermediary. They should not receive or must not have received a loan within the scope of the loan component of the formal employment creation project. We can say that a company cannot benefit from the lending and also the grant at the same time. Eligibility of sub-projects. As we said before, we don't have any sectoral restriction, but the World Bank's and TKYB's exclusion list should be taken into consideration, and the companies should not be included in this exclusion list. You can find the list on the link on the slide. At case.org, you can find this list from the relevant documents. And also the environmental and social evaluation of the sub-projects will be made, and they should be in category B, of which equals to World Bank's medium risk, or a category C of our bank, which equals to the low risk of the World Bank. These sub-projects can have a duration of 18 to 21 months. It's expected to create and maintain formal employment for at least 18 months. Each applicant firm as a legal entity can submit only one sub-project proposal within the scope of this call for proposals, and the location of the sub-projects are these 24 selected provinces. Eligibility of costs will be presented by Dilek Hanım. Over to you, Dilek Hanım. Thank you very much, Caner Bey. I will take over this presentation at this point. Another eligibility criterion is eligibility of costs. There are general rules for the eligibility of costs. All costs should be incurred by the beneficiary within the scope of the sub-project budget approved by TKYB for a cost to be eligible. One of the most important criteria is that the costs must be generated during the implementation period of the sub-grant or sub-project. Costs incurred before or after the sub-project period will not be considered as eligible costs. The costs should be reasonable, justified, and clearly explained. Verified and financially sound, especially with regard to economy and efficiency, and should comply with effective management principles. Eligible costs should be based on actual costs verified by supporting documents, which may be invoices, payrolls, and bank statements. Sub-project budget will be prepared in euro currency, and the costs should be compatible with the general and specific objectives of the sub-project and should be included in the sub-project budget. No lump sum costs will be considered as eligible except for indirect costs, such as incidental and administrative costs. We have eligible direct costs and eligible indirect costs. As regards eligible direct costs, the first layer is human resources. In the human resources budget heading under this project, this is the most specific one, most special one, and it covers the largest area, largest costs, because at least it can consist of minimum 70% and maximum 90% of total eligible costs of the sub-project budget. In the human resources budget heading, only the cost of the newly hired employees within the scope of the sub-project can be considered as eligible costs. So for a human resources cost to be eligible, that human resource should be hired throughout the duration of the project. And the total cost refers to the employer's cost. And the second eligible direct cost is working capital. Under the main eligible direct cost, it covers the operating cost. It may have different items such as production materials, such as raw materials, ancillary materials, components, and sub-assemblies.
Bu maliyetler yeni yatırımlar veya mevcut.
Next one would be the fixed investment cost. Fixed investment costs are the cost needed for new investment and/or expansion modernization of existing facilities and covers multiple sub-project budget items as machinery, equipment, vehicle, furniture, computer equipment, installation costs, spare parts, and etc. And I also would like to underline as a small warning that when there are, used, second-hand, refurbished, repaired machinery equipment, these cannot be regarded as eligible costs, and the budget items cannot reference any specific brand, model, or origin while preparing the sub-grant budget at proposal stage. Another one I would like to talk about is other costs and services under eligible direct costs. So expenses related to consultancy, publication, research, audit, evaluation, visibility actions, promotional activities, work permit fees, other employment-related fees, and etc. incurred during the implementation of the sub-project are indicated under this budget heading. Work permit. This is frequently asked questions, so work permit fees will be under other costs under eligible direct costs. So eligible indirect costs. So I would like to talk about two main categories thereunder, which is administrative costs and incidental expenditures. So the indirect costs incurred in carrying out the action may be eligible for flat rate funding, but the total must not exceed the percentage of the estimated total eligible direct costs stated in the respective section. The first one, as I said, is the administrative costs. Administrative costs that are not budgeted in the sub-project but incurred in connection with eligible direct costs during the sub-project implementation period. They are limited to a flat rate of 3% of the total direct eligible costs. These can include stationery, office supplies, mailing, postage, telephone, internet, fax costs, heating, electricity, other forms of energy necessary for successful completion of the sub-project. And the second main category here under is incidental expenditures, the contingency reserves. The amount of incidental expenditures is limited to a flat rate of 3% of total direct eligible costs of the sub-project. The use of incidental expenditures is subject to administrative order and written approval of TKYB. Talking about ineligible costs, debts and debt service charges, interest and commission, provision for losses or potential future liabilities, costs declared by the beneficiary, beneficiaries, and financed by another sub-grant or work program receiving European Union grant, purchases of land or building, credit grant to third parties, taxes including value-added taxes, customs and import duties or any other charges, purchase, rent, or leasing of land and building, fines, financial penalties, and expenses of litigation. As I previously indicated, second-hand machinery and equipment, bank charges, costs of guarantees, and similar charges, conversion costs, and exchange losses associated with any of the euro accounts related to sub-projects. I would like to underline this, especially the costs arising from any currency losses. So these are under ineligible costs. contributions in kind, any leasing costs, depreciation costs, costs incurred by those other than the beneficiary firm, vehicle purchase or rental costs for personal use, costs for preparatory work, such as project consultancy for the application and other activities before the start of the sub-project. So if these are done before the project contract was signed, they cannot be considered as eligible, and other expenses not related to the sub-project. So I would like to show you the grant program website. This is www.kayis.org, both available in Turkish and English, and there are application documents both in Turkish and English, and you can access these documents and various other documents that can help you for the application, which are available through the website. Project webpage and application documents are available. As I said, project application guideline, application form, business plan, and other application documents can be downloaded from the Call for Proposals tab on the web page. Applications can be made by accessing the KAIS online application from the application tab on the web page, and also there are some documents which are also made available in Arabic. So in order to make an application, you have to log in başvuru@kayis.org, and you can log in with the one-time code sent to your mobile phone. And templates for supporting documents are already made available in the KAIS platform. So applications on KAIS platform. So we need one mobile phone registration for each application to be made. So I would like to talk about the application process. Let us talk about the application documents. All those are available on our website, as I previously indicated. Application form and business plan, it will be prepared through the KAIS platform. Sub-grant budget, it will be prepared through the KAIS platform. The rules to be followed in the budget are detailed in the application guideline. And if the relevant rules are not followed, the system does not allow the application to be completed. So as I previously indicated, Caner Bey indicated, for instance, 70 to 90% of the budget will be human resources. But if that is not followed, if the incidental expenditure is more than 3%, so if those rules are not followed, system does not allow the application to be completed. Sub-grant employment plan and performance indicator, it will be prepared through the KAIS platform. Full and correct entry of existing and planned additional employment data will be the basis for evaluation of the application, which is very important to us. The fourth one, Annex D, is the procurement plan. It will be prepared through the KAIS platform. All the procurement items under the sub-project should be included in the procurement plan, but there is an exception: human resources, administrative costs, incidental budget, and utilities under working capital. And the last one is the logical framework matrix, which is the last one, Annex E. The draft accessible on the platform or website should be uploaded to the relevant section of the platform using the Word format. So the application process. So we are going to be requesting you to submit supporting documents. If any of these are not available or not applicable, please upload another document which will explain the situation. So we would like to underline this as an important fact. I don't need to list them. You can see this in the application guideline on the website, so I don't need to list them one by one. So we can move on to the next slide, please. We can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you very much. So regarding the application process, as I previously indicated, so on başvuru@kayis.org, so you can use this KAIS sub-grant platform. The sub-grant application form, business plan, its annexes, all supporting documents must be submitted electronically through KAIS sub-grant platform, which is an online sub-grant management application developed and managed by TKYB, Development and Investment Bank of Turkey. We are not going to require you to submit documents physically, so all forms, plans, annexes, supporting documents must be only submitted electronically. So applications can be in Turkish or English, and all application documents are available both in Turkish and English, but application form and business plan are only for information purposes, translated to Arabic and made available, but please do not make applications in Arabic. Applications should be either in Turkish or English, not in Arabic. There are some documents in Arabic for your information only. Please follow the guidance and further explanations for the explanations process on the website. In case of conflict between Turkish and English documents, the English subgrant application guideline, its annexes will be binding. So the deadline for submission of applications is 28th of February 2022, 17. So please remember that the system can be overloaded towards deadline, so it is recommended to upload your application before the last hours. No exceptions to the deadline will be accepted, even if the delay is caused due to technical glitches. So there are a couple of important notes which I would like to share with you regarding the application process. So questions may be sent by email no later than 20 days before the deadline for the call for proposals to the email address below. So that is kayis@halkıma.co.tr. The contracting authority has no obligation to provide clarifications to questions received after this date. Clarifications to questions will be given no later than 10 days before the deadline for call for proposals. To ensure equal treatment of applicants, the contracting authority, TKYB, cannot give a prior opinion on the eligibility of applicants, applications, or a sub-project or specific activity. No individual replies will be given to questions. All questions and answers, as well as other important notices to applicants during the course of the application process, will be published on the website www.kayis.org. It is therefore advisable to consult the above-mentioned website regularly in order to be informed about the questions asked by applicants and answers given by the bank, the TKYB. So I would like to talk about evaluation and selection of applications. So the steps of evaluation consists of 4 steps. So the first step, step 1, is administrative and eligibility check. For all applications submitted via KAYIS platform, an administrative check will be conducted. Compliance with eligibility criteria, the applicant eligibility of subproject, duration and costs, environmental and social criteria will be checked as set out in section 2, and administrative aspects will be checked for all applications. Step 2 is technical and financial evaluation. Technical and financial evaluation process will be carried out by independent assessors under the supervision of TKYB. Sub-project proposals are evaluated objectively in terms of technical and financial qualifications in line with the evaluation criteria as shown in below. The evaluation grid. Applications that receive sufficient score at this stage will proceed to grant evaluation committee and budget revision stages. Step number 3 will be environment and social assessment. All provisionally selected and reserved list of proposals receiving the first no objection from the World Bank will be assessed by environmental and social assessors with respect to compliance and environmental and social framework of World Bank and TKYB. Environmental and social assessment review documents for proposals that are provisionally selected and in the reserve list will be requested from the applicants. Step number 4, notification of the contracting authority's decision. The applicants will be informed in writing of the contracting authority's decision concerning their application, and if rejected, the reasons for the negative decision. So, when all these steps are passed, subgrant contract signing will be initiated with those who passed all 4 steps. So here you can see the evaluation grid, but before I move on to that, I would like to make some clarifications concerning the technical and financial evaluation. So as you can see, there are independent assessors under the supervision of TKYB who conduct this assessment, and the topic of the sub-project, its relevance with the priorities, financial and operational capacity, methodology, cost effectiveness, and sustainability will be taken into consideration at this stage. So in this slide, as you can see, the subgrant evaluation grid, and using this grid, the projects are scored according to a total number of 100. So you can see, so applications which receive less than 20 from methodology will fail. So there are 5 criteria in this grid. As you can see, relevance, financial and operational capacity, methodology, cost effectiveness, and sustainability. The proposal is primarily evaluated for the targeted increase in formal employment. The eligibility of the proposal for the purpose specified in the program is examined. Then, financial and operational capacity of the applicant is taken into consideration for assessment purposes. It is assessed whether the applicant has eligible capacity to carry out the submitted project activities. Then methodology, the overall design of the proposal submitted by the applicant is evaluated. Regarding cost effectiveness, the compatibility and relationship between the budget submitted by the applicant and the expected results are examined. In the sustainability part, the institutional structure of the applicant, which will allow the continuation of the activities after the end of the project, is evaluated. So in the next slide, step number 3, you can see which is described in a greater detail. So here you can see in the methodology part, there will be the employment plan which will be evaluated. How consistent is the overall design of the sub-project? Are activities feasible, consistent with the objectives and expected results? Does the proposal include additional refugee employment? Does the proposal include additional employment of any female employees? And does the proposal include sufficient additional registered employment? These are the questions asked, and over 45 points, at least 20 points should be received. So more than 20 points should be received for passing. So we already shared with you the indicative timetable, but I would like to reiterate that. So deadline for requesting any clarifications from the contracting authority is the 8th of February 2022 until 5 p.m. 17. So today until 5 p.m. Last date on which clarifications are issued by contracting authority, 18th February 2022. Deadline for the submission of applications, 28th of February 2022, 5 p.m. And then administrative and eligibility checks, technical financial evaluation, environment, social assessment, notification decision, and subgrant contract signature, which is foreseen to be in September. But this is an indicative timetable. So this is referring to provisional dates and may be updated by the contracting authority during the procedure. In such cases, the updated timetable will be published on the project website, kais.org. So you can see the key features of the grant program as a summary. So we wanted to show this to you as a brief summary of the grant program. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much, Dilek Hanım, for your presentation. So this is the end of the project information slides and the presentation overall. Now I would like to move with the questions. And you can see on our website the FAQ, frequently asked questions, and we compiled some questions because there are some questions which are frequently asked, and we would like to walk you through them. And there are also some questions which are asked in this session, and we are going to pick up the most important ones in order to be able to reply to them using this opportunity. Sometimes we receive comments such as, I asked the question, but I did not receive an answer to my question. However, similar questions have already been asked, so we compare and also we combine them and provide an answer. We do not prepare or provide specific answers to specific companies because that would be against the principle of equal treatment. So we would like to start with you, Caner Bey, and I also would like to underline that after the last meeting, the FAQ section has been updated because we received some new questions and there were some repeatedly asked questions, and we updated FAQs, and we are going to mention them using this opportunity. Caner Bey, let's start with you, and then Dilek Hanım will take the floor, and then I will take the floor again. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the floor. One of the frequently asked questions is the language for the applications. Dilek Hanım already underlined that rule. Applications can be submitted in both Turkish and English. In addition to that, on our website, there are some documents, the application guideline, and also another document which are made available in Arabic, but applications should be submitted in Turkish and Arabic. I mean, they can be submitted in Turkish and or Arabic. So the next question, number of employees to be employed. So that depends on the application and also the size of the company. As TKYB, we have not set a limit for that. However, I mean, in the evaluation grid, there is a question concerning does the proposal include sufficient number of formal employment as additional employment? So for small scale, 4 and more, for medium level, 16 and above, for large size, 40 and above, new employment are expected. So about whether refugee employment is a requirement. So in line with the objectives of the grant program, so we can see that 50% of new employment are expected to be refugees or Syrians under temporary protection. In the evaluation grid, we have already shown that. Evaluation of employment of refugees will give you extra scores. Is it compulsory to have female employees? Well, it is not compulsory, but as we showed in the evaluation grid, when there are new female employees, there is a higher evaluation score attached. So regarding refugees, are they only Syrians under temporary protection when you talk about refugees? No, refugee as a definition covers both Syrians under temporary protection and all other refugees under the scope of the project. So as you can see from the application platform, we are asking for application form and a business plan, and there's an employment plan. While developing that employment plan, the new employees, their nationality information will be entered in detail, which is a requirement. So you will see it there. And what should be the qualifications of the employees to be employed? Under the scope of the sub-project, I mean, there are no limitations concerning the qualifications of people to be employed. Depending on your area of activity, different employees with different qualifications can be accepted. So what about the size of the applicant? We already underlined during the presentation, 149 employees, small scale, 49 250 medium scale, and more than 250 employees, large scale employees. So that is the categorization. There are also service statements and also up-to-date Social Security institution declaration will be submitted. So we will see the scale of the enterprise of the company. Whether private companies can make an application was the question. Unfortunately, unlimited companies cannot be eligible. So limited and other types of companies which are not unlimited companies can apply for the grant. So thank you very much, and over to you, Dilek Hanım. Dilek Hanım, over to you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. So another question, which is an FAQ. What will be the currency of payment for the grant payment and through which modality? So sub-grant payments will be paid in euro and the budget will be prepared in euros as a consequence. So while preparing the sub-budget in the estimated costs, the sub-project, while preparing that, you will take into consideration the date and the euro currency on the date of preparing the grant application. There might be some fluctuations, and of course it is important that the applicants do not make profit as a result of the euro currency fluctuations. Concerning the payments, so the payments will be made on the currency when the payment is actually made effective, and also there will be merits payment made on a 6 monthly intervals, and of course there is a requirement of creating formal employment. Talking about HR expenditures, the payments will be paid based on the realization rate of the employment. Sub-project payments will be done in 4 units. First, there will be preliminary payments after contracting, after the first monitoring visit. That will be 10% of the sub-grant amount. That will be advance payment to be made effective. And then there will be merits payment, which will be the second, third, and the final payment based on the merits, employment requirement verification, and also for supplies, the rules will be checked for procurement. And once that is verified, payment will be issued. The second and third payment will be maximum 40% of the sub-grant amount, and the final payment will be 10% of the total amount. That is how we are going to arrange the payments. So I also would like to underline that human resources expenses for its verification, human resources costs, and also employment registries should be periodically uploaded, and also there will be cross-referencing to the Social Security institution records. So when companies have investment incentive certificates, can they make use of the grant programs? Yes, they can make use of the grant programs. I mean, in order to apply to this project, to this grant, the company may have an incentive certificate, and that is not a barrier. After the application, can we start employing people in order to fulfill our commitment? We already explained that the items will have to be implemented during the implementation period, which means that after the signing of the contract and during the project implementation, after the contract signing and the final report being submitted during the implementation, the employment should be realized. And also, if this rule is not followed, it is ineligible. So you make an application, you employ new people, but you have not yet started signing the contract. You have not yet started officially the project. So you have not signed the contract. So it is not going to be considered as eligible cost. So you have to implement and hire new people after the signing of the contract. So can we use the grant support for the already employed employees? No, because this amount is for new formal employment and new jobs. So the already available human resources working for the company will not be eligible costs. And for that, I also would like to underline that application guideline eligible costs section should be reviewed. I mean, should be read very carefully. Capacity report, is it compulsory for application? As per the relevant legislation, there might be some companies and some applicants may not be required to issue such a report, a capacity report. So if you are one of those companies which are not required to prepare a capacity report, in the relevant application documents part, you have to submit a document certifying that you are, as a company, not required to submit a capacity report. For detailed information, you can visit TKYB capacity report section of the TKYB website. So which sectors can apply for the grant? If the sub-project topic is in line with the World Bank Environment Social Protection policies, that's okay. And also the company should not be in the prohibited sectors list of World Bank and TKYB. And there is no other categorical limitation or barrier in addition to that. In the grant website, you can see the environmental and social policy document, and you can read that in order to receive detailed information. In addition to that, environmental and social commitment plan and also World Bank's environmental and social standards should be complied with by the project. In the sub-grant program, there are some risk categories, and those projects, as underlined by Caner Bey, which are World Bank, medium level risk, TKYB, B minus, and low risk World Bank, TKYB, C category, project activities will be considered eligible. So can we have a couple of projects under one application? So every company with legal entity should submit only one project proposal under one call. So you cannot make several applications on behalf of this or in the name of the same company. So when newly employed staff leaves during the project implementation, what happens? So we said that 21 months and at least 18 months of employment and maintenance thereof is a requirement. So for the second, third, and final payments of the financial support, we will take into consideration the Social Security institution registration and records. So we are going to make a cutoff from the grant support if the requirements are not met. So can there be changes on the applications made on KAIS platform? There cannot be any changes or anything that can be amended on the application that is submitted on KAIS. But what you can do, you can save it as draft and you can make revisions later on. In order to make a revision after the deadline, I mean, you cannot access the website after that. If you think that you made a mistake in your application, for the cancellation of your application, kais@kalkınma.gov.tr is the address. During the time when the call is still open, by underlining your rationale, you can make a request for making a new application. You can make a request, and after approval of TKYB, you can make a new application. Over to you, Ayşegül Hanım. Thank you very much, Dilek Hanım. So I also would like to continue with the FAQs, but before I do that, I would like to make a couple of emphasis concerning the questions so far covered. And we received some questions today as well. One of them is that, what do we mean by project? Is it a new business model? What do we refer to as a project? What we mean is that what we expect from the companies under this call is for the companies to describe how they are going to create employment. We want to understand your business, your activity, the activity of your company. What are you doing and how are you going to create the new job, the new employment? Let's say, for example, you are a textile factory, you're a viewing company. Maybe you're going to say, I'm going to buy this amount of new machinery and I'm going to invest that. Or maybe you're an IT company, you're going to employ 3 new IT specialists. So why and what are you planning with the new jobs? We want to see your business plan specifically in this grant. And the second topic is, if there are no Syrian women, will the project be eliminated? No, that is not the case. Regarding SUTPs, let's say you do not have any female SUTPs for the new jobs, your project application will not be eliminated. I would like to clarify female employment. As we indicated in the beginning of the project, we want to make sure, and we also prioritize women inclusive employment and projects with female employment. But if you don't have female employment, that is not a reason for your elimination. As you can see in the evaluation grid, it provides you some extra points, some additional score, because that is one of the priorities of the program in order to have some female employees, but that is not the absolute requirement. So if you are not women inclusive or female employee inclusive, you can still make your application. So what is going to be an advantage to you is some new jobs created for female, which will give you some additional score in the evaluation grid. But if that is not the case, you are not going to be eliminated automatically. Another topic I would like to underline is the SSI incentive. And for those employees who benefit from SSI incentive, can I receive some grant from this program? If you're already making use of an incentive, then this project will not be fit for you. Because after signing a grant contract with us, you are going to employ new people and the grant will apply to those new employment, not the already available, already working human resources. So the general rule is to have incentive from one source only, to have grant from one source only. If under the scope of another FRIT project or another EU project, some activities are already financed, you cannot make use of the support that we are making available. So another one is, can we have an application less than the minimum amount? No, it cannot be less than the minimum amount. It wouldn't be eligible in terms of the administrative checks. There are some minimum application amounts according to the size of the companies, and we are expecting your applications accordingly. There are some sub-projects, and according to your business plans, you are going to prepare your plan, and we will see your activities, and we are going to expect your budget to be done accordingly.
KDV istisnasında
We also have VAT exemption. So in drafting the sub-grant project budget, you have to take into consideration the amounts excluding VAT. But after signing the contract, a sub-project contract, you can apply to the relevant revenue office that you're affiliated to. You can get the issuance of relevant VAT exemption certificate. You can use that certificate, but as you know, human resources will not be the subject matter of VAT. Only who are the refugees? These are the refugees under temporary and international protection. These are going to be covered under the sub-projects in the Directorate General for International Labour Force under the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, and their regulations, legislation, their publications are recommended to be followed for that purpose in relation to this matter. And also 10%, 1 out of 10 people, foreigners should be employed. Although in the legislation there is such a limit, such rate is indicated in different places, but when you apply for a work permit, for each work permit, there is a separate evaluation undertaken by the DG for International Labour Force. For that reason, we cannot say that we reject them categorically starting from the start, but we are aiming at balanced distribution. We would like to create employment opportunities for refugees and also for the Turkish nationals for employment in your project proposals. If you take that into consideration, you can create a more balanced project proposal. So work permit fees. Work permit fees are eligible costs. This was also asked again. For work permit, all the expenses that are going to be incurred will be considered as eligible project costs under the sub-projects. For foreigners, in order to find these foreigners, where can we apply for? İşkur, Turkish Red Crescent, community centers can be applied in your provinces, respected provinces, because İşkur has similar projects for refugees. They have employment programs, incentives, training sessions for refugees. So from İşkur and Turkish Red Crescent community centers, you can get the relevant information as TKYB. We don't provide any guidance. So apart from İşkur and Turkish Red Crescent community centers, we cannot refer you to anyone else, anywhere else. So it is ultimately the responsibility of the applicant firm, especially the commercial business decisions of the companies need to be respected, and we want to open this area for them. We don't want to impose everything depending on their own needs, depending on their own activities, depending on their production or services or whatever they offer. The staff members they need can be best found by themselves. At this point, we can just provide this referral to those centers, but the costs can be covered from the budget of the project. And that was the last question I noted. You asked about the points and scores. In total, it is 65 points for eligibility. And for the methodology, you need to get minimum 20 points in methodology step. This is already indicated in the guideline, but I just wanted to repeat again. From the frequently asked questions, I will continue.
merak ediyorlarmış. Çok fazla soruyorlar.
They wonder about this presentation. They're asking about this presentation. This presentation is already uploaded to our website. You can download it from a website in the application guideline and its annexes page. You can find this presentation as well in this website, on our website. And we're going to show you the website soon, very soon. We can show where it is, where you can find this presentation on that website. There are a few more questions. Maybe first we need to ask these questions to you and you answer these questions. For example, all of these questions were mentioned during the presentation while we were describing the project, but this was repeatedly asked. That's why we need to highlight the answers. After the program, there is a company asking this question. After the program, after the duration of 18 to 21 months, do we have to maintain the employment of that staff member? Yeah, we recommend it to maintain, but we just follow up and monitor the project throughout the project duration. After the project duration, so it's all up to the companies. They may maintain the employment of the newly employed staff members during the project and during the project. under component 3, we are going to provide technical assistance and technical support activities, training activities for the newly recruited employees. So it will, of course, we wish to see a permanent employment or long-lasting permanent, but this is not a compulsory criterion. So with the grants funded by the European Union and also under the management of World Bank and implemented by our bank, the objective of the project is to create formal employment. For that reason, qualifications development of the newly recruited employees and technical capacity building of these employees and to turn it into a permanent employment are the main objectives, but we are going to monitor your project in the duration mentioned by our colleagues. There is another question. Overdue tax debts, as the companies are exporting, their tax debts are very high, but they have more debt receivables. But our withholding requests are not deleted before they're approved by the revenue office. That's why it looks like we have some tax debts. So if we get a certificate or a letter from the revenue office or revenue directorate, will it be useful? Yeah, it is specific to each company, but we can evaluate it. You can provide your justification in your application. I mean, both a letter from the tax office and also justification letter. Then we can evaluate it and take that into consideration. Dilek mentioned about that, mentioned about the content of the next question. If you are going to employ a foreign employee, is the company going to take the work permits, etc.? So how many days after the application they should start working? The application costs can be included in the budget. I mean, job entrance expenses of the refugees can be included in the project budget. So what we expect is, under this project, these people to be employed throughout this project duration or expected to be employed in this project throughout the duration of the project. So after the contract is signed, after the contract enters into force, once the project's implementation period and phase starts, for employment, all the costs and expenses will be eligible costs. There is another question. Can we also employ another person who was already employed in the past, but not any longer? So if that person was fired just before the application for this project, and then if that employee is going to be hired again under this project, I don't know, it's not going to be so ethical. But if that person resigned already, worked in your company in the past for formal employment, if under the scope of this project you are going to employ that person, it's not going to be a problem for us. But what we can say is, during the application stage or before the application stage, in the previous periods and stages, in order to hire that person under this project again, if a high number of employees are sacked and if they are hired again, if there are unethical situations like that, it's not going to be possible for us to provide the grant. At this point, we can follow a certain method. During the application stage, we're going to ask the existing number of the existing employees. We are going to get their social security contribution statements and also withholding tax statement, because the next month you can get the statement. For February, you submit your statement in March, so it's not going to be possible for us to get the statement for March in March. For that reason, the most recent document and certificate and statement should be submitted during the application. We know the record of employment of that company. After going through all stages positively, at the contract signature period, we're going to ask them to provide the statements again and documents again. And we want to see additional employment. If they don't have a reasonable explanation for employment movements, of course, they are going to be reconsidered and reevaluated. There is a question for key employees. Do they have to be registered in the applicant company? Right, yes. Because the companies should follow their projects themselves, they should do the reporting themselves, and they should fulfill the requirements of the project. Of course, they can get some support, they can get consultancy services, but project key staff members should be the employees of the companies. That's what we prefer. Yeah, Caner, you mentioned about the employment of women, but if we don't employ Syrians or women, can't we get the score or point only for this criterion, or are we going to be disqualified for the project, from the project? We don't impose any pressure on the companies. Of course, the companies may not employ women or refugees. This is up to the initiative of the companies. But in the evaluation grade, we already showed you in the relevant parts, if you employ women, or if your company is a women-inclusive company, then you can get a higher score. Similarly, if you employ refugees, you can get extra points. For that reason, to be in the final list, your chances will be higher if you employ refugees and women. So it's all up to you, but you will have higher chances if you do so. Yeah, that's right. Ayşegül, you talked about the duration of the project for 18 to 21 months. Our company is a tourism company, so our season is very short, you know, from 5 to 6 months can we also benefit from this program. Unfortunately,
Büyük aralar söz konusu olamaz. Yani biz
you
18-21
can't have long intervals. So in a period of 21 months, you should maintain employment, formal employment for at least 18 months. At this point, in the tourism sector, if you're operating in tourism sector, maybe basically you can maintain them, and you can maintain employment both in the high season and the low season, and do your planning accordingly. So in total, we ask for 18 months, but if you're going to employ only for 5 to 6 months, this is not going to be considered an eligible plan, business plan, unfortunately. During the evaluation process, which should be the minimum points? Can you please tell again? I mentioned about it, so I will repeat. The total point over 100, you need to get 65 points over 100. And in the methodology step where you are going to describe employment, minimum you should get 20 points. Dilek Hanım, can you please explain the following expression, because it was not so clear to a participant. In the call for proposal under 1.2, there is an expression. Can you please clarify it? This program is going to also raise awareness about employability of refugees among the employers. This program also aims at raising awareness of the employers about the refugees that are well educated and that can work or have the capacity to work. We can say that the overall objective of the project is to create formal employment among Turkish citizens and for refugees. At this point, in the Republic of Turkey, if they have the work permit, if they have the capacity to work and contribute to employment, both Turkish citizens and refugees who have this capacity should somehow be included in this program, under this grant program. If you are entitled to the grant, as mentioned by Caner Bey, there's going to be a requirement for the company to employ a refugee. So the company, while taking into consideration these aspects, will need to make some research, conduct some research, and will undertake certain efforts. So this awareness will be raised in this way about the capacity of the refugees to work in these jobs will be automatically raised under this call.
Özlem Hanım, sorular arasında
Özlem Hanım, among these questions, usually, I mean, the companies should not use any loan. Could you please clarify this issue? Only under the scope of formal employment creation project, you should not get any loan. I mean, the company, of course, can use other loans from other resources for the co-contribution or co-financing part. Of course, you can use another loan, but this should be under another loan or lending program, not under the formal employment creation project. And there are lots of questions for this presentation. Caner Bey, could you please share the screen and show our website? Because our presentation is already uploaded to the project's website under the call for proposal tab, call for proposal, under the documents of call for proposal, for example, application guideline, application form, and just here you can find it. You can find the presentation of the grant program here at this tab. So there are also other questions. After submitting our application for the project, the expenses of the people to be employed, will they be covered by the project? No, unfortunately, after signing the grant contract, if you create employment, those employment expenses will be eligible and will be covered. So what is the number of minimum employees? As you could say, yeah, minimum number of employees. We didn't set any minimum number of employees. It's all up to the company, depending on its own plan. They will designate their number accordingly. During the application stage, if you can't get any budget items proposed or stated, or if you just partially realize those budget items, will there be any sanction or any penalty? If so, what kind of a penalty or what kind of a sanctions to be imposed? It's all up to the LEC because it's related to budget. If in human resources, if you can't realize your performance committed under human resources, so your actual costs will be paid on the merit basis. There will be an implementation guideline during the implementation of the project, and this guideline will be published in the following months, and there will be some rules in some budget items for the integrity of the program. We are not going to allow transfers between budget items, but we will allow transfers between certain budget items. It depends on the objective of the project, and this is going to be tackled for each project on the basis of each project. We can say basically that the reimbursements will be, or payments will be made on merits basis, on actual costs. We are going to pay how much you spend. So what we can say is, to give an example, let's say that the project is based on production, and the backbone, if the backbone of the project is CNC machine to be purchased, and if you designed a creation of employment based on the CNC machine, and if the project owner says he cannot buy the machine, it is going to harm the spirit of the project significantly. And for that reason, we are not going to accept that. It's not going to be so acceptable on our side. But we need to evaluate it on the basis of each project. In the implementation guideline, you will find the rules clearly and explicitly. They are asking for the extension of the project application deadline. We are going to apologize from you for that. We already extended the deadline for application because we received lots of questions and requests. We found out that people were confused. And through these information meetings, we try to eliminate those confusions, in fact. But the deadline is February 28th. I understand, because you say that there are certain, it's going to overlap with the deadlines of the certain incentives and the support that you want to benefit from. But sorry, we understand, but we are sorry because this is already extended deadline, because there is a long way to follow. So we are not going to evaluate the proposals, we are going to sign the contracts, we're going to monitor the projects. For that reason, in this sense, we need to make these projects effectively as soon as possible. Sorry for that. There is a technical question. I don't know if you're going to answer it later. So the same consent form in A2 is also found in A12.4 on the statement of the last 2 months. Or So whatever we are going to apply to A 12.4, it will be also uploaded to A2. So what should we do? We cannot correct it. Is it related to the minister or to us? I don't know. We should clarify this. Yeah, we took that as a note. It was updated. It was updated, actually. I was going to say, so we updated the platform. We need to test it if it still is repeated, because it happened initially, and maybe it is not the current situation. I mean, we don't expect it to happen. About environment, there are some questions. Caner, can we elaborate on these questions on environmental and social evaluation documents? Regarding environment, one of the most frequently asked questions is about the business place opening and work license.
Firma nerede faaliyet yapıyorsa yapsın bir
license to operate. It may be in organized industrials or in techno city, it doesn't matter. They need to get a business place opening and license to operate certificates, but if they have any exemption or certificate exemption, they can share the relevant document with us, because that license to operate is valid for a preliminary eligibility control, and we are asking that document from the applicants. What else? There is another question from the World Bank, medium risk and low risk of the World Bank. How can we verify if we are included in these categories of the World Bank or not? At least you can provide a guidance. While applying, the companies will determine it themselves. I mean, in which risk category they are. Then preliminary eligibility stage will start in environmental and social evaluation stage. Experts will evaluate it. Do you have additional remarks, Ayşegül Hanım? Maybe at that point, we need to say something for overall information. It may be useful to suggest that companies who are in high risk category already know themselves. I mean, if their environmental and social risk category is high in the AIE regulations or the relevant regulations and legislation, there are severe and strict controls and conditions and requirements. So they already know themselves if they are already in high risk category. Unfortunately, high risk category companies cannot be supported under this grant program. Apart from that, we don't have any sectoral restrictions. Ayşegül, you said, but there are a lot of questions. Where can we find the refugees? I mean, female refugees, how can we employ them? Are we going to get them from the Migration Management Directorate? And are we going to find the Turkish female employees where? From İşkur, of course. İşkur, you can find them from İşkur. Thank you very much. Of course, we can repeat the answer. And the new employees will be the responsibility of the beneficiary company. So,
her şirketin, her sektörün,
the main reason why we do not make a referral or provide guidance, the competencies and qualifications needed in every sector and every company will vary. For that reason, the managers of the company will take the right decision or the best decision for the recruitment of foreign employees or Turkish employees. Of course, you can consult İşkur offices in your respective provinces. And also, community centers of Turkish Red Crescent can be consulted to find foreign or refugee employees. They have such data set for eligible people because they know the Turkish citizens and also refugees. They provide training activities, skills development activities, language courses, and they have great activities, vocational activities and general activities for both Turkish citizens and refugees. Our objective in this program is to ensure the formal employment of those people who participate in those activities already. We want to create space for them for their employment. We want to encourage the companies in this sense because we received such a question: how can we raise awareness about this? What is the objective of awareness raising? And our companies may hesitate to some extent for the employment of refugees, so we can support them in this sense.
Konuya biraz emek vermelerini
So we
desteklemek.
can support them to try it once and to put some efforts into it.
tekrar vurgulamakta fayda var.
And technical support should be repeated once again and highlighted once again. And the scope of the technical assistance and support will be planned after the companies are selected depending on their needs. That's what we can say for this. In the project preparation process, the fee of the consultation or consulting services be covered? Unfortunately, no. For a cost to be eligible, that cost should be incurred during the implementation of the project, and it starts with the signature of the contract and finalization or completion of the project. For that reason, before the application period and before the project, these costs will not be eligible.
Teknik bir dosya yükleme sorunumuz var mı?
So do we have a file uploading problem, a technical problem? Because there were a couple of questions. I mean, they saying that they had problems uploading files which are larger than 2 megabytes. So they also said that occupational health and safety file has some problems. Some of the letters cannot be read. I mean, maybe these are important to take into consideration. Let us check our technical system. So, I mean, the next questions will be they are the repeated questions. So I hope that all the participants have found answers to their questions. But of course, if you could not get a reply or an answer to your question, you have asked questions such as whether the recording of this meeting can be watched, but that is not possible. But you are free to participate in another informative meeting. The cities, the provinces may be indicated, but I mean, do not limit yourself. We made such a distinction in order not to have too many participants in one session. You can participate in one of the next informative meetings, and you can listen to the questions part and the replies will be provided. Maybe you will get your reply in the next information meeting, and if you have not found your answer, you can write to us so that we'll try our best to reply your questions. Before we conclude, Özlem Hanım, I would like to make another announcement. I would like to share some information. At the moment, I mean, if you have entered the platform and if you have submitted your application, please complete your application as soon as possible. If you have any questions, please ask so that we can reply them. Try to complete your applications. There might be a lot of people on the platform, so that might cause some problems. And you can see that the space is very large. Instead of 1-2 sentences, please try to provide details for the clarifications, because we want to know your enterprise, what are your activities, and what kind of employment you're going to create. We would like to understand that, so please do not hesitate to write details for the clarifications, and please make reasonable and consistent clarifications under the explanation section. Thank you. Okay then, okay. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much for your time. So thank you once again. I hope it has been useful and fruitful, and we will be expecting your applications. Thank you. Thank you very much. See you in the next meeting. Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you all so much.